Welcome to the Jesus.net channel where we explore life, faith, and Jesus together. Every week, our friend Pastor Grant Fishbook hosts a live Q&A where we respond to life questions from viewers just like you. Be sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button so you get all the latest content and you know when we're going live. Now, listen as Pastor Grant responds to a few featured questions that you might be asking too. This is one that I know we've touched on several times in different contexts, but I know it's one that's very close and near and dear to your heart. So Ruth asks, what are some reasons why God doesn't heal people? I prayed for several years and even been anointed with oil, but I haven't been healed yet.
Yeah. So that's a difficult answer. And what Drew is referring to, why it's so personal for me, is we've been praying for my wife's healing. Laurel has a degenerative eye disease that we've been praying for her healing for 29 plus years. And I think one of the traps that we often fall into is we think that there has to be a root behind it. You know, there must be an unconfessed sin. There's got to be something that's tripping me up. And I don't believe that that's the case. So why doesn't God always heal? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know why God chooses to heal some and not to choose others, but I do know this. When we are coming for healing, God is the only one who can do that. And so I would want to shift the question just a little bit. And instead of looking for this reason why there hasn't been a healing, instead to focus on the fact that God's door is still open, that God still heals today, that today might be the day of your miracle. There is a man in Scripture who it says, according to the story, had a certain affliction for 38 years. 38 years. And then one day God shows up and says, what do you want me to do for you? And he says, I want to be healed. And then God heals him. There is so many examples in Scripture where the answer to a healing was not yet. And I think it's important for us to realize that's not punishment. It's an opportunity for refinement. So my wife said something the other day, and it just struck me again. She said, I'm actually glad up until this point in my life, even though she desperately wants to be healed. But she said, I wouldn't trade the journey because it's brought about a level of intimacy with Jesus that you can't discover any other way than when you have to come to him every single day and say, God, I need you to fill in the gap because my eyes don't work. For me, it's my ears. I have a condition called tinnitus, which means that my ears have this screaming metallic sound in them all of the time. And there are moments when I just want to pull my hair out because it drives me a little bit crazy. But in that moment, God says, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. And so instead of just chasing down a reason, I think it's more important in the waiting time to turn towards God and say, God, I trust you. I believe my healing is coming. And I think expectancy is a powerful, powerful tool in a Christian's arsenal. In a Christian's arsenal. And so to be able to come and to say, God, I choose to believe you are my healer. I do that. I believe that you're my healer, that you're more than enough to look after me. And God, as I wait right now, I want to just open my heart to you. You know, that the beautiful part of Scripture, it says, consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance, and let perseverance finish its work. So that may be really, really difficult. It's hard to let perseverance finish its work, but we know that God is in all things. And we also do have the promise that all things can be used by God to bring about this beautiful perfection that he's creating inside of us as we are waiting expectantly. And so I just want to encourage you to not give up on your healing. I love the fact that you've been obedient. So James chapter 5 says we're supposed to come to God, that we're supposed to be anointed with oil by the elders of the church. We're to pray in faith, believing, and God also does a promise there. And the promise is that there is a healing coming. It's coming, and it may be on this side of heaven. It may be on the other side of heaven, but we need to hold on in that moment. So don't let the enemy distract you with trying to create the healing checklist. If I do this, and this, my healing is guaranteed. Instead, come to God and say, Lord, help me to learn, help me to be patient, help me to trust you, and help me to keep coming back, because you're the only one who can answer me. And I'm trusting that you, in your perfect timing, are going to give me that answer.
Wow. And Grant, I thought of this scripture passage in James. We're getting ready. We've been doing a lot of research in James because we're getting ready to talk about it as a church. And this scripture just came to mind as you were answering. And I love at the end of verse 4, it says James chapter 1, and in verse 4 it says, "Let perseverance finish its work." And I love the rest of this verse, "so that you may be mature and complete, lacking in nothing."
Yeah, there you go.
Which is so crazy
good.
because when you're praying for healing, you feel like you're lacking a lot. I mean, the idea of being mature and complete and lacking in nothing through perseverance is not what we think about when we think about this journey of healing. But I love that scripture paints such a spiritually hopeful tone that God has a purpose and a plan, that God knows and God sees. Man.
Some of the most afflicted people I've ever met. My wife, the Apostle Paul. I mean, I know Laurel would go, "Why you put me in the same?" I actually do, but if you look at pictures of maturity, they all have one thing in common: they've been through something. They've had to throw their weight fully and completely into the hands of God and say, "God, I cannot fix this on my own," and God meets them in that, and that creates a refinement. It creates a holiness. It creates a beauty wrapped around them, and we need to not be afraid of holding on to that. I mean, Peter himself, he talks about the beauty of suffering, that there's a holiness in suffering. And so we have to walk through that and realize Jesus suffered. Jesus was perfect, and he suffered. And so we can hold on to that as a way of sustaining ourselves as we wait for our healing. But I also believe that God has a miracle every day for each one of us, and we just need to know, we need to be expectant that it's coming.